What's going on, everybody? It's FREEDO here for Your Overwatch, and like the title suggests, we're going to be looking at the worst team composition ever. Now, there's a big story behind this particular gameplay. There was a lot of toxicity and infighting with the team as well, but I want to come at it from the standpoint of correcting the solo queue, poke at the choke meta, and misconceptions about how the game's supposed to be played. Now, first and foremost, let's take a look back at the team comp that we were going to be working with. It is horrible! This team comp was doomed to fail from the start. Now, the funny thing is, the enemy team wasn't running a Mei, which could have utterly shut down this comp in entirety, as Mei is easily one of the most powerful ways to defend point 1 Hanamura, and can single-handedly keep out a composition that isn't prepared to be able to deal with it. Nevertheless, the enemy team isn't even running Mei, hence why the solo queue meta exists. When you're playing in games that's filled with solo queuers, oftentimes the picks are just so unoptimized that a whole nother meta gets created. Because if nobody's playing the best stuff, then all of a sudden other things are more viable or can give you the illusion that they're viable. I mean, let's look distinctly at the pieces that we're working with in this composition. Our DPSs are Hanzo and Junkrat, more on that later. The support combo is pretty decent. Lucio and Zenyatta, that's workable. We wouldn't say this is the best combo right now because Ana's so strong. With Nano Boost, you probably want her instead of Zenyatta, but he isn't a terrible pick either. However, we have two off tanks as the tank roles. This is going to be very important. We're going to have a lot of examples in this video of why that's bad. But right from jump, we can see that this comp reeks of the smell of the poke at the choke solo queue meta, because we have characters that can just dish out damage by themselves, and really there isn't a way to establish any synergies because none are built in this comp. Hanzo is a pick-off type character. Junkrat is a bulk damage character, oftentimes a trash damage character, because if his damage isn't followed up on, it's going to get healed away and be worth nothing. Our hero Jackson does get an early hook, which gets D.Va out of her mech, and so the poke at the choke meta is already sort of working, but if you look to stage right, Hanzo has his ult already going through a couple walls, wiping half the team. I wonder why that is. Well, when you don't have a main tank, which is either Reinhardt or Winston, keeping in mind the enemy team does have a Reinhardt, a character like Hanzo can get his ultimate in 30 seconds, and he's going to get it again in no time. Because you don't have a reliable way to shield from the incoming damage onto you, they're using the Roadhog and the D.Va as bullet sponges to charge their ultimates. The enemy team has a Reinhardt to 1, not feed ultimates, and 2, shield his teammates with tanking, and any of the quote-unquote tanking that Roadhog or D.Va is doing essentially just gives them ultimates. Now, luckily for our heroes, the enemy defense was playing so close to the choke that they were able to get picked off, led by our hero Jackson. And because their respawn time is so far, they have to take a massive hike to get back to the point. Without a doubt, you should be able to snowball this objective for free. But when poke at the choke meta type strategies like this work in solo queue, it seems that people get the wrong impression that this is a viable way to play the game. And it really isn't. It only is if you're playing against another team of uncoordinated people that don't understand the game either. Because if that enemy team saw what they were establishing, saw that they could just get free damage all the time by playing afar, they could have stayed out of range of the Roadhog hook and won easily, especially if they had a Mei, which would have made it impossible to push through that choke. Now, the funny thing about this game in particular is that we had a few players that got incredibly toxic. I didn't want to play it here because it is pretty horrible what they were saying to each other. But the funny thing is, as much as it seems that some people in this team know the general principles of the game, they don't know everything. Like, I'll say flat out, Lucio was the guy trying to make a lot of the calls, and some of them were good and some of them were horrible. Like, for instance, when they first left spawn, Lucio speed boosted immediately.
Speed boost off the break, and then like right now.
Yeah, I'll speed boost out right now.
And he's the guy who eventually starts to push the dialogue into toxicity, as it seems he's confident he understands the game completely because he was top 500 last season. But if you play in the 6-stack meta, not in the top 500, but probably even at lower ranks, you definitely know you do not speed boost to the choke from spawn. It is horrible. I mean, look what happens here. They get out of spawn and they speed boost basically to a red light. That's about how much sense it makes. It's like you're all revved up in your Mustang, revving your engine just to get to the red light faster than the other team. You do know the defense gets to set up before you, right? No, you want to speed boost through the choke, past the choke. I mean, compare the gameplay that we're looking at here compared to my last video about focus fire and target prioritization. Here we dove over the point and through to engage onto the key targets as opposed to poking at the choke. It just goes to show you the crazy difference between the solo queue meta and the 6-stack meta at every single rank in Overwatch. It's a vast chasm of difference of gameplay. So as maybe a note of morality about this game, even if you think you're incredibly knowledgeable about this game, don't be a dick, because there's no way you're perfect and there's no way that there's a full consensus on what the right play is every single time, because this Lucio wasn't perfect, but he thought he was. I get this a lot too when I try to shot call, because I will try to set up unorthodox plays within openings of the enemy team, but instead oftentimes you get teammates that want to play almost too standard to the point where they never make a play and play just so predictably that no progress ever gets made and there's no explosive aspect to the team. But what I have to say, if you're playing in this environment, which is partially what I wanted to make this video about, if you're trying to be the shot caller, you have to work with the pieces you have and the knowledge base and understanding of the team you have. You can't force them to try to make plays that they don't understand the reasoning behind. One key thing that I learned in my games is that my team knows how to exploit when the offensive team is at a disadvantage and to push them to wipe them out. But in standard solo queue play, players think you should always defend and hold no matter what. But if you get a pickoff or two, it's advantageous to then jump on that opportunity and speed boost towards them and kill them. You'll see all the pros do this all the time, and the best teams do this really well. But in the solo queue meta, nobody knows that. So there's no point for me to try to force teams to do that, because I'm going to look like the doofus running in by myself when the team's not following me. So when you're playing in solo queue, you have to understand that that's the case. You have to adapt to the play style of your team and what's going to work. With that being said, a lot of times people ask me questions on how to pick correctly in this type of situation. Honestly, as you'll see if you watch our live streams, a lot of the times I end up playing a few key heroes because they're so impactful to the team. There's a lot of heroes I can play, but I end up playing Ana or Winston a lot because it takes care of so many blind spots of a team composition. If your team pokes at the choke, well, eventually you can just heal them away and get nano boost yourself, and that is your initiation tool. In a team comp like this that has no reliable initiation, yes, D.Va can jump in, but not in the same way that Winston can, you could potentially go Winston, jump in on a key target, drop a barrier down in an advantageous position that allows your teammates space to walk up and hopefully hit a shot, and if they do and call out something that's weak, Winston can be the follow-up. He has that multi-purpose role. And there's more videos that we're going to be making on this channel about the concept of team comps, and it seems that in general, the community as a whole is learning slowly a lot of core basics that have to get met in order for a comp to work, but ultimately a lot of what you have to think about isn't as simple as enough tanks, enough healers, enough etc. Those actually aren't the most important parameters to be meeting. Instead, you should be asking, how will your team heal? How will your team initiate? How will your team synergize? Those are the most important. And with those in mind, you can potentially come up with really wacky compositions that don't have a tank, that don't have a main healer, that don't have all sorts of things, as long as those aspects are understood. Now, when you're on attack, you must somehow initiate onto the other team. Typically, main tanks are the best for this because Winston can jump in and establish a front line, or a Reinhardt can stand in front of his team and allow them an entry path to peek into them. But theoretically speaking, if you're going to play a pickoff style comp, you may even have to just double down on picking off things from afar. Because if you just mesh up in a big ball against the enemy Reinhardt shield, when you don't have a main tank, it will be incredibly easy for the enemy team to win that fight. Whereas if you're one of the players in this particular lobby, you might go Widow and take a crazy off angle and go for pickoffs as well, while Hanzo takes a different angle. It isn't the best strategy, but at least it synergizes with the idea that your team is doing. Now, luckily with the team that we have right now, it's only 1 or 2 picks away from actually being a decent comp. But because you have 2 very unreliable damage dealers in Junkrat and Hanzo, it turns out that our hero Jackson does the majority of heavy lifting when it comes to confirming kills, which is the most important thing when it comes to the team fight. There's a lot of ways you can do it, and this video is really a great example of why Roadhog isn't a main tank, and we would argue is basically just a DPS, because his entire playstyle is about picking off the enemy team. But realistically, this team needed a dedicated initiation or shielding tool, and what might have worked, if you see your teammate Roadhog getting a bunch of picks, double down on synergizing on that player. The problem that a lot of people in solo queue have is that it feels like everyone wants to be the hero of the game. game. Everyone wants to be the Allen Iverson, give me the ball every time, and I will carry the game. Those are the type of heroes that Hanzo, Junkrat, and, believe it or not, Roadhog are. Their main DPS roles, but they all need setting up, follow-up, and support, and if you have 3 of them on the same team, there's no possible way they all can be having the maximum impact. Sure, if Hanzo was getting pickoffs left and right, you probably just would have snowballed every objective and wrecked them. But because that isn't the case, this gameplay kept turning out to be these really awkward poke battles every engagement, with not enough stuff dying, and no real setup or follow through or rhyme or reason to the comp whatsoever. And worst of all, there was no combos to be made with the ultimates. Think of this. You had 2 defensive ultimates with your supports that basically keep you alive, and then you have Whole Hog, Diva's Self-Destruction, Hanzo's Dragon Strike, and Junkrat's Tire. Not a single one of these can set up the other one to work unless somehow you were so coordinated that you could send all that offensive damage dealing potential at the same time, and through the crossfire you wiped everything. Unlikely to happen. That's why Earthshatter and Graviton are so good. All that damage dealing potential doesn't do what it's supposed to do if it can't be set up by something else. Heck, even Winston crowd controlling the enemy team into one of those could have been used to set it up. And that's one of the major tips that I give new players that ask me, how do I get out of these lower ranks in gold and below? Just set up ult combos. That's all you have to do. You can play pretty mediocre most of the game on attack, but if you just wait long enough, pull the enemy team's ults out, make sure they don't have res, or focus fire the Mercy, and do an ult combo yourself. Any one, just pick one. Typically set up by Graviton or Earthshatter or both. Because once you do that, you have this massive advantage into the fight, and you can snowball from there. But if everyone wants to be the main damage dealing carry role, you get ugly games like this, where there is no production, there is no coordination, there really isn't anything to do, and everyone gets frustrated and starts pointing fingers left and right. Well, in truth, honestly, as far as the picks are concerned, all 4 of the tanks and DPS characters should probably change into something else that allows a synergy and a setup for another player. But if everyone wants to be the hero, you're gonna lose a lot of games. And trust me, I know it's annoying to have to fill in for your team each and every time. And I'm not necessarily saying do that, because oftentimes that doesn't work either. But you have to pick some sort of play style and hero that's going to synergize with the play that your teammates are going for, especially if they refuse to change. That's the only way it can work. And so you guys know, the player that recorded this gameplay, Jackson, his YouTube channel will be linked in the description if you want to check out the entirety of this monstrosity of a game. All the toxicity included. A lot of horrible words are said back and forth, so just be warned before you head over there and get surprised. I originally reviewed this gameplay on my Coach FREEDO series, which is something that I do on Twitch, on our main Twitch page, each and every Friday. I don't know when I'm uploading this video, it might be on Friday, so if so, I may be doing it live currently, so go check it out. If you want to catch up on the videos on demand for that series, they're uploaded onto my personal channel, which is linked at the bottom of the description of all of our Your Overwatch videos. Or you can just search me up on YouTube, FREEDO with 2 E's, to go check that out. I think I might do more gameplay reviews of you guys on this channel. I'll watch them first on the Coach FREEDO series, and then possibly make them into a more extended, in-depth video for the channel, because we do want to try our best to investigate the game, how you guys are playing it, so that we can directly help improve your gameplay experience. Well, that's been it for me. I hope you guys enjoyed this crazy video. Really looking forward to see your guys' comments on the solo queue meta problem, toxic teammates. Let us know in the comment section below. If you enjoyed the video, please hit the like button. It really does help us out. Subscribe for more. We upload each and every day. Check out our Discord server and our live streams. That's been it for me. I've been FREEDO for Your Overwatch. I'll see you guys next time.